Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, one word conversations. This is going to be a fun show. The reason why is I'm like in my element. I think a lot of part of my time, and sometimes there's too much of it, of reflecting, kind of taking a look at things. I've noticed that it shows up differently for me, and sometimes in a negative, context, in a way that I'm not just looking at what I'm seeing. I'm judging that, and I really like to change that narrative on how I reflect. I'm wearing a shirt here. I don't know if most of you can see this, that I got from a good friend of mine, Cal Woods. He's a member of my Good Life Project tribe. I think in 2016, he had initiative for men of just embracing their kindness and their passion, and different things through an I am statement. And the wonderful thing about this T-shirt here is that it's backwards, and the only time that I was able to read it was in the mirror, and so it changed my time and my perspective when I was in the mirror and looking at myself, and it was a sense of encouragement. So within that, our word for today is reflection. And so as I do, I bring in one of my friends, and we have a conversation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. William Brown.
How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I know that seems, not everybody might feel that way, but I feel very lucky, very peaceful that I get to feel this way for all that we're living through.
Right. I'm learning that just owning where we are, and it's, no judgment to how other people are handling things, but it's just how you're doing it.
I find that like during September 11th, everybody was in like the same state of mind.
Right.
And through this, I've noticed a spectrum of emotion, and I think that's all okay. And I think we should hold space for each other, and it's not wrong or right how we're reacting to anything.
Right. So as you can see, that it is very natural for us to just get into the conversation. I love to ask my guests or my friends to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
So in the spirit of this show, I am Stephen Warley.
Great.
I run a business called lifeskillsthatmatter.com. I help people create work that works for them. I want to help you make work part of your life, not your entire life. I really believe that working for yourself, or at least managing yourself, is how work is going to be. I think we've all gotten a taste of that in the last couple of months being in quarantine. I think that is going to start becoming more common. And I think some of us are really excited about that. I think some of us, that's very frightening. And so that's what I really believe each one of us has the tools, the gifts, the capabilities of doing this. It just hasn't been brought out in us. And I think when you start recognizing it, as I always say, my tagline, it's possible, right? And I also think a lot of people that we work with don't really care about ever becoming a millionaire, becoming filthy rich. They just want to be like, how can I make enough?
Right.
Something I'm kind of good at, and I don't want to be working crazy hours. You know what I mean? So I my life.
Right. Well, wonderful. So with that in mind, how does reflection land for you?
I'm so glad you asked, and I'm sharing you a podcast link here. I actually requested this word, and why I did, it's back to how work is changing, right? Before the pandemic, I was thinking, gosh, you know what would be life-changing for people if they could stop more and reflect. because we're all so busy. I recently had the opportunity to interview David Allen, Getting Things Done fame, and he said we are all addicted to ambient anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
always having to worry about something and do something and never feel like we're enough or did enough. And long ago, I've been recognizing that I no longer want to be addicted to that. And I've done tons of experiments and a lot of work on myself to break free from that.
Mm-hmm.
So then this pandemic comes along. And as I like to say it, the universe sent us all to our rooms to do some reflection.
Right. Right. Yeah. I just, how can sometimes the judgment of reflection, instead of that, that means that, I say, the one physical way that judgment comes up for me in my reflection is when I'm in the mirror. Instead of just looking at my beautiful self, I look at, what I don't like. It's like, oh, what the hell is that? Or why is this? Or, I should stop that, and it's not really just taking it in or being getting an awareness of myself. It is just an opportunity to judge myself, and it's
Yeah, and I would say, like, the way I look at reflection, it's an opportunity to accept yourself and to decide what is it that you want. Thank you, Rick. It is my COVID there. It's deciding what you want to live in your life, because we're always asking for permission, right? And our brains are hardwired to look for acceptance. Way back when that served us to, like, we didn't want to get kicked out of the tribe because that's where our next meal was going to come from.
right.
And then we have this very refined market economy that we've been living through the last 200 years, and it's gotten really perfected in the last 20.
Right.
And it always gently makes us all feel like we're not quite good enough. And if you're not quite feeling good enough, guess what? I have something you need. And this is what it costs. And so you're constantly in this loop of looking for problems and looking for things to improve on, and you're just never good enough.
Right.
And you are.
Right.
Right now, in this moment of time, if you're watching or when you watch a recording, Liam, you're great right now. Stephen, I'm great right now. If you're watching, you're great now. And I always tell people, like, this is our one shot to experience your version of this experience that we're all living through as a human being. This is it. We've never had your version before. And once you depart this earth, we will never have your version again. How special is that? It's so funny how we're expending so much time trying to not be ourselves, when the most special thing we can be is ourselves. And I'll say one thing. A lot of times with the people I'm working with, they realize that when they start creating that work and work for themselves, they're like, wow, I get to be myself all the time. And it takes so much less energy. And I also tell people, not only does it take you less energy, but the more you are yourself, the people that are into what it is that you're doing are attracted to you. So it takes less energy to build your business, instead of constantly chasing after people and convincing them of why they should be working with you.
Right.
I'm going off on a lot of tangents here. And one quick thought, because about the mirror. Month of February, I decided to cover up all the mirrors in my living space. I've been living nomadically since June. I was in Bali, because I realized to what you were just describing, it was just this habit my brain would go through to, like, look at myself and look at all the things that weren't going quite right or what I needed to focus on. So I just decided to remove it from my day.
Right.
And I got a lot of mental capacity back by just not knowing what my hair looked like, or what my clothes looked like, what my face looked like.
Right. Wow.
I was just me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like this physical thing. I was focused more on, like, the inside out version instead of the outside in.
Right. I live with my wife, and so that the process of taking the mirror away, it would be interesting. However, sometimes my wife is my mirror, and she'll, like, give me that look, because, like, or you're not wearing that, are you? Or, is that what you're wearing on the show? Or, or something. And so, people give us a reflection,
I guess that's the funny thing to me, again, is, you know what, I finally gotten to the point, I'm a recovering people pleaser,
Mm,
and I'm wearing what I want to wear. And that's the thing I want everybody to realize. When somebody makes a comment or a criticism or a judgment to you,
right.
it often says more about them than it does about you. That's one thing. I also want to remind people, a lot of times when we get it from our loved ones,
Mm,
they're not trying to bring us down. They actually think they're protecting us. They
right.
think that they're helping.
Right.
So just remind yourself that it's coming from a place of love. They're not
Right.
trying to make your life miserable.
Right. Yeah. It's sometimes, I feel the judgment, but sometimes it's like, oh, she's just looking out for me, and
Yeah.
she just, making sure it's like, make sure everything
And then
is
sometimes
right.
it's a nice thing. It's a pause. And then whenever
Right.
it happens with you, sometimes you say to them, like, I'm good with me. You got to
Right.
like, how do I feel? Like, oh, I'm good with this, but I appreciate
Right.
that you look out for me. Or it's a pause to be like, oh my gosh, I've been so busy. You know what? I forgot where I was going. And thanks for looking at me. I definitely want to change this shirt.
Right. It's something for me. It's harder to give myself that space or that grace to kind of not judge and just kind of accept, this is what I see. This is how I'm showing up. Or all right, I am okay with this. Or, so it doesn't have to, I don't have to fix anything.
No.
And it's
I mean, there's always we're all a work in progress. But again,
right,
on our
right,
terms of like, I guess the way I look at it too, um, it's really about managing your intention and what it is that you want to do in life instead of
right,
looking to other people to tell you what you need to do in life. You are the only person that can ever decide or make it happen for you about how you're going to live this life and spend your time, your energy,
right,
your attention. It's you.
right,
And that's what and I always say, that's the toughest question in life. What do you want to do with it? And again, this, I think, and why I want to talk about reflection today is it's horrible. So many people are dying, and there's just
mm,
so many people are losing their jobs. It's wreaking havoc. But
right,
it's also made us all stop. And hey, Jerry Tan, good to see you. And to really think about, what am I doing?
right,
and
right.
and so I wrote about this. I don't know if you'll be able to share it in anything that you're doing. I should come up with it. I'll have to do a shortened link. But I did a podcast called The Great Reflection,
Mhm.
because I know some economists are going to come up with some lame term about like the lockdown recession or the COVID depression. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Right,
could we have a more uplifting feeling? Because what I
right,
feel a lot, no matter where you are on the spectrum of being freaked out about this or feeling optimistic about the potential of how things could change for the better,
right,
it's causing us to stop and to reflect and to slow down. And because we've been all addicted that faster is better, more is better, and now we're all slowing down and having less. And
right,
all of a sudden we're like, oh, there's this option, and it turns out there's benefits to like slowing down and having less.
right,
And that's what I guess the question for me, and I would like to plant in everybody's head today is, with all this time that you've had to reflect and slow down and reconnect with yourself and reconnect with your core people,
right.
what is something that you would like different to come back out of this? I know a lot of people are like, I want to just get back to normal. And I said, really? Like 100% you just want to go back to the way everything was? I
Right,
don't. And I'm
right,
sure there's one thing that you have learned about yourself or how you've been living the last 2 months that you're like, you know what? I like this. I want to keep doing this. I want to keep living like this.
right. It's, I think it's, we both are on, a journey of self-discovery. That's a part of our, our work and how we show up for our clients. And, in that discovery, in that awareness of self, there is, there is a tendency, I'll speak for myself, to only concentrate on what I label is good or what is nice,
Oh, so
or or do that. So it is. It feels like, yeah, I don't want to go back to everything normal, type of thing. I just want to go back to the good parts. Well, no, it's not just that part. It's you get everything, and so really acknowledge that there is a familiar someone. I don't know if it was in a conversation that I was having, but or an audible that I'm listening to about us, our connection to the familiar, not normal. It's
And
really,
if I could just jump in really, because I've
yeah.
read Tracy Litt's book, Worthy Human, also
Mm,
recently got to interview her for our podcast. And she really brought out in her book for me that even your brain loves certainty and familiarity so much.
mm,
And even if you know that something is causing you misery or
mm,
you don't like it, you will keep doing it. I often tell people that's why everybody likes to complain about their jobs and nobody ever does anything about it, because they're like, your brain's like, well, this is familiar, we know it. It's kind of sucks, but the possibility of uncertainty seems way scarier. We don't know
right,
what's going on with that.
right,
So I don't think you should change your life. Why don't you just stick it out in this miserable job?
right,
That's how much your brain, and that's where you have to consciously, through reflection, stop and say, recognize, all right, brain, just like we were talking about how your wife was looking out for you, your
right,
brain through fear is also looking out for you and be like, and what I always tell people, one of my quick recommendations to kind of deal with fear, because it's always going to be there, is to tell your brain, we're just going to do an experiment. Put a deadline out. And then your brain's like, okay, I'll let you have your fun for the next week or the next
right,
week. But after that, we're going back.
right,
Give yourself enough time to like check it out and push through some of the difficulties, the learning curve, and embrace the discomfort a little bit. And you're going to grow. And then you get to that point, you're like, ooh, actually, brain, I want to do another experiment and keep moving
right,
further. And I think that's the way to keep moving through, because that's what your brain wants. So when you're facing uncertainty, you are facing the unfamiliar, you need to give your brain some sort of simple plan, even if it's just an experiment. And that will help your brain being like, all right, let's give this a shot then.
right. Yeah, I just it's kind of, who's running the show. The conversation that I had with Yvonne, her word was heart. And I was like, oh, sometimes I listen to my head more than my heart, and she was like, oh, it's all about integration, type of thing. But there's within that integration, there has to be an acknowledgement. So letting your head know, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. We're kind of, it's, everything's okay. I'll be, keep myself safe, or, all that other kind of stuff. So there's like this reassurance that I'm not about to do something crazy. I'm not going to go walk outside with polka dots on or something, right? It's like that kind of thing.
At the edge of a 100-foot cliff. Yeah, I hope my brain is like making me like almost poop my pants.
Right. It's like, it's like, what can I? It's like, I will do what I need to do to stop you. And it's just, when do you think reflection, or the I guess the process, can be, I guess, detrimental, or it's kind of a turn into navel gazing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, anything can be overdone.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of letting everyone know that self-awareness is the most important life skill,
Right.
and reflection is part of that process.
Right.
And typically, and I'll say this in response to your question. First, when I describe self-awareness, I tell people immediately, this does not mean self-judgment. It's self-observation. And back to what you were saying before, this is observing a behavior of yours as if you were somebody outside, a friend or a family member is watching you do something, but you're doing it for yourself as best you can. And you have this behavior, and it constantly leads to a certain outcome. What you're saying to yourself is like, gosh, I don't like this outcome and I want a different outcome. Or maybe you're fine with the outcome. And then if you're not fine with the outcome, you're just like, well, this is the set of behaviors, the habits that keep creating the outcome. What could I do to change it to maybe get a different outcome?
Right.
So you're not assigning that the outcome is good or bad. What I tell people is it in alignment with your goals, your values, or where you want to go in your life? It's about being more intentional, right? So a common example I bring up, and I just read an article about this, I think this might be true for a lot of people. Alcohol, right? A lot of times it's such a socially accepted, it seems very low level. There's very intense addiction for people, but also for a greater majority of people, it's like, oh yeah, have a drink or two every day, and then sometimes it turns into 3 or 4, like 3 days a week.
Great.
And that's when you want to have that awareness of like, gosh, I'm getting up later. My brain is a little foggy. Or, ooh, I missed my workout today. What did that? And for me, that kept being like, you know what? I can't have alcohol in my life, because that is a habit that is leading to a lot of outcomes, and it's taking me away from my intentions, my values, where I want to go. So I'm not demonizing the alcohol. I'm not saying it's bad or good or shaming myself. I'm just saying it's not bringing me where I want to go. And having different habits helps me to where I want to go. And I would say, I think sometimes, again, with reflection, awareness, it's, I think there's always something we could be working on, but don't necessarily go looking for problems. And I think sometimes it's also, we have to accept things in life, right? Like coronavirus, you have to accept it. It's so out of control that we're going to have to accept certain things about it, And I think sometimes with reflection, there's things you can change in your life, but there's also things that you're going to have to accept. And I think sometimes just going through periods of just enjoying where you are, enjoy being who you are at this point in time.
Right.
Is that your question?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think I really appreciate, your insight on that. And it's like sometimes, it's, even though I know, but I have a knowing of better, that it's not either or, it's both, it's and, right. But it still feels like sometimes that if I'm not judging this, or if I'm not critical about what I see, I'm like derelict in my duties, right? I mean,
but also, when you are, how do you feel when you have criticism, judgment from somebody else or yourself? How do you feel?
I feel less than. I feel like I'm.
You want to continue to feel like that,
right? No, I do not want to.
So, what would you do,
instead
of judgment or criticism?
I'm an avoider, so you would,
we kind of all are a little bit,
right? So
our brain likes that familiarity. It's
right. So it's like, all right, so I'm tired of hearing that. So let's find another way, and just kind of, leave that environment. But then, I question. Then I take it on. So I won't accept it from them, but it's already, a seed is already planted. And now it's, it turns into a rabbit hole for me. It turns into something that now I don't talk through. I kind of have it collapse in on myself. And so how I can take, criticism, other people's observations, other people's input, but still have, an opinion of my own, still have a choice in the matter, is sometimes that balance.
Example, because this is the longest my hair has ever been in my life, and we've barely commented on it already. So I've gotten a lot of comments being like, your hair looks amazing, your hair looks terrible. And then a lot of times, what, as an example, is it's like, what do I think?
And
that, I guess the only opinion that matters is yourself. I mean, I could take it into account what people are saying and like, that's great, but this is something I'm doing and I'm going to do, and I'm okay with it. And I think that's where we have to have the courage. And I'm working on a book to help people understand how work is changing, what you can do about it, how to respond to it. And really the thread of the whole book, if there is one mantra, is to stop asking for permission. That's what we're doing all the time. Every time somebody says something, we want their acceptance, we want them to say, we want to please them, and you just can't please everyone. And a lot of times, again, when somebody's making a comment about you, it's really saying more about them and their past behaviors, their past programmings, than it has really nothing to do with you, really.
Right. And I see how it's creating the disconnections in our lives, because them just sharing or saying stuff, because that's what we do. We say stuff, right? And then we can go from there. I'm having,
you know what I mean? And a lot of times now I do it. I'm like, oh, I just criticize her. Or actually, what I did in January, another experiment, I challenged myself not to judge even in my thoughts, more negative type of judgments. And I was blown away. Like in the first, thank you, Jennifer Gines. good accountability, Jennifer Dine. And thank you for holding my feet to the fire. But I challenge myself to be aware first of how often I had judgmental thoughts. And I was like, in the first day, I was embarrassed.
Right.
But as you get into the journey, that it's recognizing something that's really uncomfortable, that you don't want to admit that you do, right? None of us wants to think that we're judgy. We all are. It's just hardwired like fear is. It's actually useful. It's protecting us. But then starting to understand, like, where does it come from? Okay, I learned that it's biological. I learned that it comes from just our society, the American society, in my opinion, is a little judgy.
Right.
With all the freedom we have, we're all judging each other.
Right. Judging people's how freedom shows up for people. Right.
That doesn't sound very free to me.
Right.
And then also just within your own family, there were patterns there. And then, or somebody said something to me like 20 years ago, and I didn't realize the impact that it had on me. Thank you, Jennifer. On me. So what it was now, I find myself like, I kind of short-circuited on something. Like I can actually go through an hour and being like, oh, I didn't judge anything. Huh. And what I think it is when you point that behavior out, that thing that it's an uncomfortable truth that you got to deal with because it's creating habits and bringing you away from where you want to go. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's like half the battle. And then it does get a lot easier. I think that's the trick with reflection. I think at its best, it gets you to this comfortable place. Not too comfortable, but to say like, I know this is going to be hard and I don't want to admit it to myself, but I know I need to face this and I need to deal with it, because if I can, life on the other side is going to get better, and I'm going to be brought closer to how I want to live, my intentions, my goals, my values.
Right. There's this saying, I think it was G.I. Joe cartoons when I was little. It was, knowing is half the battle. And what I've learned, that knowing of something is the beginning of the battle. Knowing gives you the option to make some choices. It's like you said, you can't unsee. I can't unsee this. I can't unknow this.
And that's the point too, when you have the choice of like, oh, I chose to look at this person, and immediately my brain made a judgment.
Right.
Like that was one of infinite responses.
Right.
So now, as a part of that journey, as a practice, I would say, whoa, I don't want to do a judgment. I want to pay this person a compliment, right?
Yeah.
And also to realize, again, we're so visual just as a species, but also America, we judge everybody really visually, right? I mean, to the point where Americans think of wealth as visual. You have to show it to know like that you are wealthy. To me, it's, how many days are you able to like go without working? To me, that's like wealth.
Right.
And, but it's not as sexy, right?
Right.
So I think, again, it's helping you understand that there's a variety of ways that you could have responded to something. Or another self-awareness exercise I bring people through is just noticing how you react. Like we always have these instant reactions. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative. They're anger, their excitement, their sadness, their judgment. And again, just recognizing in the course of a day how many times you react, and just be like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And then pick one of those, like, I'd like to stop reacting in this situation.
Right.
And then come up with some strategies of how you might do that. So what we're doing is we're starting to manage our brain a little bit more. Again, I think this was reflection, a regular reflection practice at least once a week. Right. And I can explain, if you want, a difference between self-awareness reflection and mindfulness meditation too.
Sure, that'd be great.
But with I lost my train of thought because I want to get over to that too. So the idea, I think the beauty of reflection is just really learning how to manage your attention, learning how to reduce. It's almost like looking at reactions and responses as a ratio. Probably more than us care to admit, our reactions are much higher than our responses to things.
Absolutely.
So the goal is if we can start switching that, and that requires us to first reflect, stop, reflect, and say, I had these reactions. Why did they happen? And what could I do about that going forward when they come up again?
Right. Yeah, I think for me, the one concept that I I have in my coaching of a judgment-free zone, and how I describe it there is that judgments will come, but they're free to go. You
Mhm.
know, and just really encouraging people, don't beat yourself up because a judgment has come, but just let it go. Open the door, let it let it go
Or
out.
if you have a judgment, have the courage to say to yourself, what is that saying about me? Where's that coming from? Am I trying to protect myself? A lot of times that's what judgment is about.
Right,
You're
absolutely.
trying to first to judge somebody else to protect yourself because you're afraid that they're going to judge you first.
Right. The way you're thinking, the way you've been brought up, what you think of yourself, all that you are it everything for me, I have seen it is an affront to how I've decided to live my life. I am confronted with someone doing something, saying something that is in some cases challenging how I live. And so it's like, you're not going to do that, it's like I got to defend, why I'm living this way, why I'm wearing this shirt, why I'm doing all these other things, and it is, um, I don't feel that judgments are bad, just like I don't think labels are bad. I think um, they are an indicator of some things that are happening and not happening, in our lives.
Well,
And
they're lessons if you want to look at them in that
right, lessons, right? Absolutely. That's
opportunities to learn. But again, it requires you to stop, recognize
right,
that you're doing it, and then to reflect on it.
right. But if we hold on to the judgments, and it's hold on to that way of being, and that's what the conversation around disconnect to connect is, that sometimes we hold on to judgments of people so we can't connect to them. And so
Wow.
if we disconnect from our judgments, or from that, then we can connect to people on the human being level versus all of this other stuff that is coming up.
Yeah, and again, everybody wants to feel accepted. We want to feel secure, right? But again, that manifests itself in a variety of different ways. Um, yes, Benjamin, I like that. Reflections make you see what you don't want to be aware of. So true. Again, the uncomfortable truths. But again, we all want to feel secure. We all want to feel accepted. And just, we won't get into this too much, but politically in America, there is a spectrum of reaction to achieve this idea of feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling accepted, right? There's
Right.
infinite reactions.
Right.
But
I'm
then
on the right team, right?
we judge each other to say, like, the way that you're expressing that is bad, and the way you're expressing that is bad, instead of slowing down and saying, hey, first, let's recognize you want safety, you want security, you want to be loved. So do I.
Right.
But we don't do that.
Right. Those are the adult conversations that many of us don't, um, in some cases, don't. I feel like we don't know how. It's not modeled.
Well, it goes, or somebody has to be right, somebody has to be wrong. Again, there's
Right.
a win-lose mentality in American
Right.
capitalism, right? And to me, I look at it as where I remind myself that, do I really want to put somebody else down? Do I want to judge somebody? Do I need to get that from them to boost up my own self-worth? I don't want to do that. I want my self-worth internally recreated.
Right. It is something that, I shared, a post that my brother-in-law shared. There was an image of, boats, on an ocean, and, in a storm, saying that, we're not all in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. And I think, sometimes there is this judgment, or this, when we look around and see what's going on for us, we think that everybody should handle it the same way.
Mhm.
And we all have different understandings of ourselves. We all have different understandings of the world, and all these other things that we're dealing with. And that if we don't extend the grace, or extend, kindness, we can really cause a level of disconnection for like no reason.
Right. And well, that's what's happening, right? I mean, and I think it's an old Asian proverb: first, seek to understand to feel understood.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Could I explain the relationship between self-awareness, reflection, and mindfulness,
Absolutely.
meditation? I look at it as a self-awareness practice. And the reason why you would want to have a self-awareness practice, it's the most important life skill. It teaches you how to know yourself for yourself, how you learn, how you like to learn. And it enables you to look at yourself, observe yourself, so you can, again, see if your behaviors, your habits, your mindset are in alignment with where you would like to be going, and starting to understand all the other different parts of your brain and all the competing priorities
Right.
that it has. So, and self-awareness is a moment by moment, it's a mindset. And reflection to me is a specific activity, which it could happen daily, it could happen weekly. So a daily practice would be writing. You know, there's a variety of ways to journal. It could just be a list, it could be answering questions, it could just be free writing, you could draw. But it's having the moment to stop your life, just to then start gathering information, to start seeing patterns and transit your thinking. So that's another deep self-awareness exercise to understand how you can start, directing your life in a more intentional way instead of reacting. And having at least a weekly, check in with yourself. This is not about being selfish. It's not about being self-righteous or anything like that. But just having a time, an hour with yourself, where you're going to go for a walk, you're going to go for a cup of coffee, and you're checking with yourself. You're actually having you have a relationship with yourself.
Right.
And check back in and see, like, how you doing, Stephen? How you doing? Right. What went well this week? What didn't go well? What's bugging you? What do you need to get off your chest? What do we want to be worrying? What are you happy about? And just to do that as an exercise. And then the role of, I would say, mindfulness is a little bit like self-awareness, where you're, I think, trying to think about, how do I want to be more intentional in my interactions with myself, the world, and other people.
Got it.
So that comes out of the work of self-awareness. And then finally, meditation is an opportunity to really to stop, number one, just to stop. And to really, in the long term, really connect with yourself of just being a being, and just realizing that you don't have to think about anything right now. You can have the thoughts, let them come and go. As you just said, the judgment comes, they can also go.
Right.
And just to really, and I think that's what's so hard for a lot of people now. I think a lot of people could be struggling in quarantine because we're so uncomfortable. It's been so long that any of us have ever been bored.
Right.
Any of us know how to sit still anymore.
Right.
And we need to reconnect with that and realize that what meditation at its best to me reminds me is, like, I am in charge of my life. All these other little distractions and pings and things vying for my attention, I get to decide if I want to give them my attention.
Right.
They get to decide if they take my attention.
Right.
And that's really this whole thing, really the whole key to life, in my humble opinion, is learning how to manage your attention and recognizing where it goes, how it gets there, and how you can start using it much more intentionally in every moment of your day.
Right. No, I think that was great. There's a couple of things came up in your sharing, but there's something. I was talking to one of our friends, Barb Klein, and she was sharing about self-care. And one point that she made was a distinction between intention and attention, and the reason why, what I heard in it, the reason why our intentions don't show up in our lives is because we don't have an awareness of what has our attention.
100%.
Right. And the more that we're able to get those two in alignment, what has our attention is also our intention, then we're living the life that we want. And it was just like, wow, because there's a lot of things that have my attention that has nothing to do with my intention.
And that's really the elegant thing. That's what we're trying to line up And I think that what we all want to feel is like when people are like, I want a certain amount of money, I want this house, I want this experience, I want this type of relationship. What we all really want, we don't use this language. What we're all looking for, and that's what I've been looking for in life, is inner peace. Just to be cool with like, this is who I am, where I am, and just that's okay. And let the chips fall where they may.
Right.
That's right. I agree with that, Rick Charlie.
Yeah,
because we are viewed as human resources. And remember this, everybody, work is designed for the needs of corporations, not for you as a human individual. And that's why we also, when I teach people about building a business, it's deprogramming them of what they think a business is. It's like I'm teaching people to be more like single founder, solopreneur type businesses.
Right.
And it's more important to manage your attention and your energy than it is to manage your time. Right? Time is a metric that corporations need to use to like make sure that they're getting the most time out of all the people that they hired, right? But when you're for yourself, you have, and through a practice of self-awareness and reflection, you'll realize you have about a 3 to 4 hour window every single day of your sharpest mental clarity, your best physical energy to do your best and most important work. And a lot of us are doing more knowledge work. You don't have the capacity to do that for 8 to 10 hours a day. I love when people tell me they work for 8 to 10 hours a day. When I hear that, I feel like you haven't had any time to reflect, to assess your priorities, to find out what's really important. And I love the constraint of 4 hours just every day to do your best work, because then you have this gigantic to-do list, but you can't do everything. What's the most important? What's in alignment with your values, your intention? Where do you want to put that attention?
Right. No, that's great. The other thing, I have one last question. I know we're coming to the end of our time.
We would have no problem filling this time.
I know it's like there are some people. It's like one word. I can't talk more than 5 minutes on one word, but it's like that's not the truth. I think the one question that came up when you made the distinction between reflection, awareness, and being mindful in meditation. And what came up for me is like sometimes I see within myself that I mislabel the activity. And so it just kind of come into like this alphabet soup type of thing. And I really don't have a clear distinction of, those activities in that, practice.
In the spirit of William Brown, let's get rid of the labels for a second.
Okay.
Three things you're doing. One is just trying to be a little bit more aware of like, this just happened. Did I want that to happen? If not, how did it happen? How do I prevent this from happening again? And that's a practice.
Got it.
Another action is to just have a meeting with yourself, hang out with yourself for like at least an hour a week in a very comfortable, inspiring place, just to check in with yourself. Like you're taking yourself out for a walk, for a cup of coffee. And then the third and final activity is just to be still, be quiet, and allow your thoughts to come and go, and to realize that allow your what's happening. Your brain is always so stimulated, and your attention's being like robbed so much.
Got it.
Sitting and being still and being quiet brings awareness to like, that's what's happening to me every day. Even here, I'm sitting still and quiet, and I still feel like my brain is on fire. And then the more you can do that and start having this feeling of a new baseline of what it means to truly feel calm, peaceful, quiet, and slow, then you have this new baseline in life to react that you can really start building around.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, it did. It absolutely
did. You come up with your own words for what those three things.
And what that means, because we create and destroy language.
Baggage. Every time I say like meditation, I could see like the walls going over people. Right. And I think a lot of ways that people still explain what meditation is not very useful. I think people feel like they're not doing it right. And I love when people say like, oh, I meditated for 4 hours. It's becoming competitive. And it's just,
right.
That's how you do meditation. You don't get meditation.
Right. Absolutely. The other thing from a conversation a few weeks ago with our friend Jeff Harry on boredom.
Amazing. I can never get bored.
I know, but so that was a great word for him. But what came out in that conversation is our boredom is kind of an access point to, our happiness, or something, figuring out, hey, this is where I am. If I sit with this, I can create something. I can find something there. And that's
Or challenging yourself of like, what are you doing to avoid boredom?
right.
Like,
And just,
you should like, challenge, I think we all should, on a regular basis. You should say, like, you should figure out, I don't know, but allow yourself to be bored at least once a week.
right. And just
That
kind
doesn't
of,
happen anymore. Remember growing up, did you remember as a kid being like, I'm bored? Did you say
right.
that?
Oh yeah.
Kids, I don't think kids say that today, because they always have a screen in front of their head. Like, they don't have to be bored. It's just
Well,
like screen.
in some cases, I think that screen is because they're bored. It's
But that's what I'm saying.
really,
Instead of saying, like, if they didn't have this immediate trigger, see, that's how that's attention.
gotcha.
I'm
Gotcha.
bored, boom,
Right.
screen.
Right.
That's
Screen.
one of infinite responses they can have to that feeling. And I think that's where we need to guide, kids, we need to guide ourselves as adults to call ourselves out, to be like, let me sit with this boredom. It is uncomfortable. Why do I feel this way? Because it's a struggle. You really want to do something, and other parts of your brain want to do something. Your attention is being like, there's parts of your brain just duking it out for your attention.
Absolutely. So, thank you very much. I want to share your website and kind of let people connect to you. And I'm also going to share the podcast.
Through that link. And if you just go to lifeskillsmatter.com anyway, just in the search, you could just type reflection, and it'll be one of the first results that'll pop up. So there's a whole blog post that goes along with it. Or if you're into listening more, there's a podcast episode about the great reflection. Hopefully, what is a more positive way to be using this time in quarantine.
Wonderful. Well, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
I will put you back in the green room, and we will say our proper goodbyes there.
Thanks all who commented and participated.
Wonderful. Great. Wow. I when I reflect on my network, I realize that I have some amazing people that I'm connected to, and I am honored that I get to have these conversations. I wanted to, as I wrap up today, I wanted to thank all my friends publicly, and one, because I started this program, this platform, with an idea that I was going to do it twice a week. And because the story that I was telling myself is what, nobody's going to, give me this time to talk about one word. There's a lot of things going on in their lives. And my friends, showed up to the point that I've, had a show every day since that time. And I am booked until the first week in July. And so every day you get an opportunity to have these conversations with my friends. And I'm just so excited and thankful and grateful and for that. And so if there's any time that you look at your life and you have a judgment, or you have a criticism of what's not happening or what's not available to you, I invite you to take another look, to ask yourself, why do you have that feeling? What's really, causing you to think that way or feel that way? Because the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow morning, 11 a.m.